Hello everyone, and welcome to my Sister Wives For You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The courtroom was packed with tension, whispers, and the heavy weight of decades of drama when the announcement was made that the Brown family, the stars of Sister Wives, would finally face what many fans were calling Judgment Day, a reckoning that had been building for years as Kody Brown's control, decisions, and questionable financial dealings came under scrutiny. And when the shocking verdict came down, it sent ripples not only through the courthouse, but across the entire Sister Wives fandom, leaving the once united plural family in tears and shock as the reality of their fractured empire was laid bare for all to see, because for years Kody had portrayed himself as the strong patriarch, the man with a vision for his wives and children, a dream of shared property on Coyote Pass, and a lifestyle built on faith. But behind the carefully crafted TLC cameras there were growing suspicions of financial mismanagement, favoritism, and emotional manipulation that tore at the seams of the family until finally those simmering cracks burst wide open in the legal arena, a place where spin and bravado could not save Kody from the evidence laid out before him. Evidence that painted a troubling picture of secret bank accounts, lavish donations to questionable causes, neglected responsibilities to wives like Janelle who had claimed she left the marriage with nothing, and a pattern of choices that placed Robin and her children consistently above everyone else, leading to years of resentment from Christine, Mary, and Janelle, resentment that now transformed into testimonies in a courtroom setting as the judge listened to hours of accounts detailing not just money, but broken trust, promises of homes that never materialized, and a patriarch who seemed to value control over compassion. And when the verdict came, it was more than just a legal ruling. It was a symbolic unmasking of the image Kody had built for himself, a devastating blow that confirmed to the wives, the children, and the millions of viewers that the dream was over, because the judge's words cut through the air like a knife, declaring that the financial records proved a misallocation of marital assets, that Coyote Pass would need to be redistributed under new terms, and that Kody's actions had harmed the financial well-being of his former wives to a degree that could not be ignored. And as the gavel came down, the camera caught Christine holding back tears, Janelle shaking her head in disbelief, and even Mary, who had long been the outsider, burying her face in her hands as if the weight of decades of loyalty to a man who never reciprocated was finally crashing down all at once. And though Robin tried to maintain her composure, whispering to Kody and rubbing his arm, the look on her face betrayed the fear that her carefully constructed role as the last standing wife was beginning to crumble. Because with the verdict came not only financial repercussions but a moral one. The image of Kody as a provider and leader was shattered, and the family, those still tied to him and those who had broken free, were left staring into the uncertain future with no script, no clear path forward, and the sudden realization that perhaps the Sister Wives' journey had been less about family unity and more about Kody's desperate need to prove something to the world, and now the world had judged him unworthy, leaving him sitting in silence in that courtroom, his golden curls falling slightly into his face as he avoided the gaze of the women he once called his eternal partners, women who had sacrificed their own dreams for a man who now sat stripped of power. And as the family left the courtroom that day, fans flooded social media with mixed reactions, some expressing heartbreak that it had come to this, others saying justice had finally been served, while longtime viewers dissected every detail of the ruling and speculated what it meant for the future of Sister Wives, with some believing TLC would seize this moment of raw drama to fuel another explosive season, and others insisting that this courtroom judgment marked the official end of the Brown saga, an end that was as tragic as it was inevitable, because for years people had asked how long the plural marriage experiment could last under the strain of favoritism, jealousy, financial instability, and Kody's ego. And now, with the judge's words echoing in their minds, the answer had finally arrived, and it was devastating, leaving the Browns to pick up the pieces, reconsider their futures, and perhaps for the first time truly face each other not as spiritual spouses or reality TV characters, but as individuals who had lost more than money. They had lost trust, faith, and the illusion of togetherness that once made them famous, and in that loss was a strange, haunting silence. The silence of a family who had reached their final judgment day and discovered that the price of chasing one man's dream was far higher than anyone could have imagined. As the dust settled from the judge's ruling, the aftermath was nothing short of catastrophic for the Brown family, because while the headlines outside screamed, "Sister Wives Judgment Day," Kody Brown exposed in shocking verdict, inside the hearts of those who had once believed in him there was only pain, confusion, and a hollow emptiness that no ruling could fill. And it became painfully clear that the verdict was not just about property division or money. It was about the destruction of trust. The unraveling of a family that had tried for years to project unity despite being broken behind closed doors. And in the days following the trial, whispers began swirling through the tabloids about what really happened during testimony, stories about Christine bravely taking the stand to detail the years of empty promises about her children's futures, describing how Kody would smile on camera while privately dismissing their needs, leaving her to feel like nothing more than an afterthought. While Janelle's testimony was said to be a dagger to the heart of Kody's carefully constructed image, because she revealed with spreadsheets and documents the reality of being left financially stranded, of pouring her own money into family expenses only to watch Kody funnel resources into Robyn's household, and Meri, often silent and overlooked, allegedly gave one of the most emotional statements of all, describing decades of loneliness, neglect, and humiliation, her voice breaking as she admitted she had stayed out of faith, only to watch her loyalty be rewarded with betrayal after betrayal. And though Robyn attempted to shield Kody by defending his intentions, even she could not erase the mountain of evidence stacked against him, leaving the judge little choice but to issue a ruling that, while not criminal, was nonetheless devastating to Kody's pride and reputation, stripping him of control over Coyote Pass and mandating that funds be redistributed fairly among the ex-wives. And while that ruling gave Christine and Janelle a sense of vindication, it also reopened wounds, forcing them to confront just how much they had sacrificed for a dream that never came true. And as the family walked out of the courthouse with cameras flashing, Christine held her daughter's hand tightly, Janelle walked with her head high but eyes brimming with tears, and Meri, though stoic, looked shattered, while Robyn clung desperately to Kody, whispering in his ear as though trying to keep him from collapsing under the weight of humiliation. Yet his body language spoke volumes. His shoulders slumped, his eyes distant, his jaw clenched in defeat, and for the first time in decades, the man who had once boasted of being the head of a sprawling plural family empire looked small, beaten, and completely powerless, a sight that sent shockwaves across social media as fans posted screen grabs and eyewitness accounts, some gloating that karma had finally caught up with him, others expressing sorrow for the wives who had suffered in silence for so long, and even longtime critics admitted that seeing a family collapse in such a public, legal way was both fascinating and tragic, like watching the final act of a play where every character's flaws had been laid bare and there was no redemption arc left to write. And in the days that followed, each wife responded differently. Christine reportedly retreated to Utah, posting cryptic but empowering messages about resilience and new beginnings. Janelle focused on her detox journey and spoke about reclaiming her independence. Meri shared a heartfelt post about self-worth and healing, while Robyn vanished from the public eye, fueling rumors that she was grappling with the reality that her protective bubble had burst. And Kody himself remained eerily quiet, avoiding cameras, issuing no statement, leaving fans and critics to wonder whether he was plotting a comeback, or whether the man who had once declared himself destined to lead had finally been forced to face that his empire was gone. And meanwhile the TLC network was left in a bind, because though the verdict created explosive drama, it also raised the question of whether continuing the show would cross an ethical line, exploiting the Browns at their lowest point. Yet executives knew the ratings' potential was undeniable, with whispers that cameras had been rolling during the trial and that the footage could form the foundation of the most dramatic season yet. And in living rooms across America, fans debated whether they would watch out of loyalty, curiosity, or morbid fascination. Because at the end of the day, the Browns had become more than just a family. They were a mirror of faith, dysfunction, and ambition that millions had projected their own opinions onto. And now, as the family picked up the pieces, it seemed the saga was far from over. Because a verdict may have closed one chapter, but the emotional fallout was only beginning, and those tears shed in the courtroom were not the end, but rather the first drops in a storm that would redefine the Browns forever, a storm that would test not only their faith in one another, but their ability to survive outside the shadow of Kody's crumbling legacy. And as the sun set on that courthouse judgment day, one truth remained hauntingly clear. The Browns had been bound together by one man's vision. But in the end it was that very vision that had led them all to heartbreak, to tears, and to a verdict that would echo through their lives for years to come. In the weeks after the verdict, the impact on the Brown family grew heavier with each passing day, because while the courtroom had given a final legal ruling, it had also unleashed a tidal wave of emotions, consequences, and revelations that could not be contained within the walls of a courthouse. And as reporters camped outside the family's homes, fans dissected every Instagram post, and old clips from sister wives resurfaced online with captions like, "The warning signs were always there." It became clear that this moment was more than just the end of a marriage or the redistribution of property. It was a cultural turning point for one of reality television's most famous families, and with each headline that screamed about Kody's downfall, the wives were forced to confront not just their past, but the uncomfortable reality of who they were now without the man who had once defined them. And Christine, though outwardly strong, reportedly confided in close friends that seeing Kody so broken in court had stirred a mix of emotions she wasn't ready to face, because while she had long fought for her freedom and happiness, there was still a part of her that mourned the dream they had once shared, a dream of unity that had withered long before she left, while Janelle, pragmatic and grounded, admitted that she felt vindicated by the judge's acknowledgement of the sacrifices she had made, yet also burdened by the fact that, even after the ruling, she would never get back the years of financial stress, the endless fights over budgets, or the dreams of a home that never came. And Mary, who had spent years as the silent shadow, surprised many by using the verdict as a springboard for rediscovery, reportedly telling close circles that for the first time, she no longer felt trapped by loyalty or fear of disappointing the family, and instead, she felt the faint glimmer of freedom, though it came far later than she had wished. And then there was Robin, who retreated almost completely from the public eye, her silence fueling speculation that she was devastated by the loss of Kody's status and terrified about how the family would survive without the financial and social structure that had always revolved around him. But perhaps most striking of all was Kody himself, who appeared almost ghost-like in the days after the trial, neighbors claiming they saw him wandering the yard in silence, pacing for hours with his phone in his hand, muttering under his breath, as though trying to piece together how his carefully constructed identity as a husband, father, and leader had unraveled in front of millions. And for a man who had once thrived on attention, his sudden disappearance from social media was telling, because it suggested not strategy but shock. A realization that no amount of spin or bravado could undo the verdict or the humiliation of losing not just a case, but the respect of nearly everyone who had once believed in him. And while fans debated online whether Kody would attempt a redemption arc or fade into obscurity, the wives and children were left to pick up the pieces, attending therapy, navigating co-parenting struggles, and trying to shield their children from the relentless media storm that seemed determined to expose every last crack in their lives. And in that chaos, one thing became undeniable. The Brown family, once seen as pioneers of plural marriage, had become a cautionary tale, a symbol of how unchecked ego, favoritism, and secrecy could destroy even the strongest bonds. And yet, even in that destruction, there was a strange sense of hope, because Christine's laughter returned in glimpses during live streams, Janelle found joy in her health journey, Mary discovered new independence in small but powerful ways, and even Robin, despite her silence, seemed to be reckoning with truths she had long avoided. And for viewers who had watched from the beginning, this wasn't just entertainment. It was the unraveling of a myth they had invested in for over a decade, and the verdict became not just Kody's judgment day, but the family's awakening, a moment that would forever change how they were seen, how they saw themselves, and how they would move forward in a world that was suddenly watching them not as a united front, but as fractured individuals learning, at long last, how to live outside Kody's shadow.